work and work just for Thank you very much.
Actually, that's a little too moving. It's the tree she saw out her window. Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. And thanks to the Netherlands and to the embassy for honoring a wonderful organization that Bob Quinn leads, Scholars at Risk, and JRS. I'm deeply grateful to Pat Leahy, a true friend, above all, of the citizens of America, who, with Lindsey Graham, did something very important earlier this week by getting through Senate appropriations, a significant bill increasing by $11 million the budget for the State Department, which I very much hope everybody here will study and support in any way you can as it moves along. I'm thrilled that you were able to come, Madeline. I remember the night at the White House, and she was astonished. She said literally, "With you?" And I don't have a picture of that night, but I have a picture of the birthday party. The Secretary of State was wearing a very beautiful pale blue silk suit. And we danced to New York, New York, and I'm afraid everybody cleared the floor. So thank you for being here and for wearing those earrings. As for the pictures of our most recent dance, I hope the embassy will be discreet. On the 14th of June, 1942, 75 years ago this year, Anne Frank wrote her first entry in a cardboard-covered notebook, describing her 13th birthday 2 days before and her many gifts, quote, possibly the nicest of all being the notebook itself, in which she began a diary addressed to her imaginary friend, Kitty. 5 years later, with the cataclysm of World War II and the Holocaust brought to a bloody close, the young girl's journal was introduced to the world. Based on papers left in the attic after the German Green Police arrested the hidden Jews on the 4th of August, 1944, and that were later given to Otto Frank, her father, the family's only survivor, a compiled edition of the diary was produced. A family friend, Dr. Kurt Baschwitz, wrote of it on 10 February 1946. It is the most moving document about that time I know, and a literary masterpiece as well. It reveals the inner experiences of a maturing girl, her impressions in close confinement with her father, whom she loved dearly, her mother, with whom she clashed, her sister, whom she discovered to be a friend, with the other family that shared their hiding place, and with their son, with whom she began to fall in love. On the day of the girl's first entry, the Frank family, refugees from Frankfurt in Germany, were still living in their comfortable apartment at 37 Meerwetplein in southern Amsterdam. But on July 9, Otto Frank took his family, his wife Edith, Anne, and her older sister Margot, into hiding in the back half of the building at 263 Prinsengracht, where he had been working. Joining them a month later were the Van Dam family, including their son Peter and then in November, a dentist named Albert Dussel, and discreetly changed the names of the actual persons. They were to remain for 2 years and 3 months behind a bookcase that hid a door leading to a steep staircase up to 2 floors on the back side of the building to what Anne called Het Achterhuis, the house behind or secret annex. The voice is astonishingly secure from the first page and likewise consistent. At 13, Anne confides to Kitty that she will alone be the one to hear who her correspondent is, someone whom no one else, not even her beloved father, seems really to understand. In her last entry, on the 1st of August, 1944, she writes of her dual personality, with its lighter, superficial side and its deeper, purer side. Gradually, we come to know a girl of extraordinary observational ability, witty. Life in hiding is like being on a vacation in a very peculiar boarding house. Curious, the radio is a source of courage, bringing news from the British landing in North Africa to the Allied invasion of Normandy. Courageous, she is her own skipper and must keep her head high and be brave. Admittedly harsh at times. Mummy does not understand her at all. Mrs. Van Daan is unspeakably disagreeable. With an increasingly strong sense of a call to be a writer, I want to go on living even after my death. And oh yes, candid. Perhaps most famously about her realization of her sexual development, but also about her dawning infatuation with Peter, to whom she explains everything about girls. Her eloquent love of nature and its beauty frequently lift her spirits, and her sense of God is strong. She says her night prayers regularly with her father, and, if not directly, nevertheless implicitly related to her frequent statements of compassion for her fellow creatures, not least, of course, for fellow Jews. On 13 January 1943, she writes, "There is nothing we can do but wait as calmly as we can till the misery comes to an end. Jews and Christians wait, the whole earth waits, and there are many who wait for death." But the heart of Anne Frank's life and witness is a hopeful faith in humanity. It's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out, she writes on the 15th of July, 1944. Yet I keep them because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. Perhaps the most famous line in the diary. Yet another variant on the central theme is her challenge to anyone seeking hope. Everyone has inside of him a piece of good news. The good news is that you don't know how great you can be, how much you can love, what you can accomplish, and what your potential is. This, I think, is Anne Frank's message as a refugee to the refugees of the world today, our refugees. Our own Jesuit refugee service was founded almost 40 years ago when Father Pedro Rupe, then Superior General of the Society of Jesus, felt strongly that the Jesuits should do whatever they could to help alleviate the suffering of the millions of Vietnamese refugees who were fleeing for their lives, seeking safety and security at the end of the Vietnam War. In 1980, he founded Jesuit Refugee Service with the mission to accompany, serve, and advocate for refugees and displaced people everywhere in the world. Father Rupe understood that the first step in helping refugees is to recognize their humanity. Through person-to-person interactions, JRS has helped restore a sense of dignity to people whose lives have been upended by violent conflict. The world and the work of JRS has changed since our founding. Today, there are well over 65 million forcibly displaced. In response, JRS has become a truly global organization with headquarters in Rome and 10 regional offices that operate programs in more than 51 countries, serving, as you have heard, over 750,000 refugees. Yet the original mission of JRS continues to define our work, to accompany, to serve, and to advocate. Our focus on education is an expression of this mission, and our focus on the dignity of each person, or as Anne so eloquently put it, our piece of the good news. Globally, refugee children are 5 times more likely to be out of school than non-refugee children. Only 50% of refugees have access to primary school, 22% to secondary school, and only the lucky few, 1%, have access to tertiary education. JRS offers quality educational programs and a variety of opportunities for refugees and displaced persons to acquire an education both in refugee camps and in non-camp settings. We believe that education, as much as access to water, food, and shelter, should be prioritized at the onset of an emergency. Without access to education, what hope do these families and communities have to rebuild their countries or to build a new life for themselves in an adopted country? Anne's ability to see the dignity of every person extended to the potential of their humanity. What you can accomplish, she says. It is the hope for a future through education that I have personally heard refugees today express again and again. It is for these refugees, our refugees, and with the girl from 263 Prinsengracht as our patron, that we humbly accept this award. And in gratitude for the award and the honor you do JRS USA, our newly elected executive director who actually leads JRS now, and I'm very privileged to work for him, Ambassador David Robinson, and all our staff, we are pleased to announce that we are launching today an essay competition in collaboration with the Embassy of the Netherlands, the Jesuit Schools Network, and America Media. The theme will be Lessons from Anne, and we hope the contest will deepen the knowledge of its namesake, raise awareness about the refugee situation shared by so alarmingly many today, and encourage Jesuit-educated students to respond in practical, hopeful ways. The first prize-winning essay will be published in America, the Jesuit Review of Faith and Culture, the flagship magazine of America Media, the leading Catholic journal of opinion in the United States. Please tell the editor that I said that. With deep gratitude to the Netherlands, and in particular to Ambassador Henna Schuer, I close by recalling a telling comment on Anne Frank and her diary, written before the first publication of Het Achterhuis by the highly regarded Dutch historian Dr. Jan Romein in a leading Dutch journal. How she died, I do not wish to ask. What matters far more is that her young life was willfully cut short by a system whose witless barbarity we swore never to forget or to forgive while it still raged, but which, now that it belongs to the past, we are already busily, if not forgiving, then forgetting, which ultimately comes to the same thing. To me, however, this apparently inconsequential diary by a child, this de profundis stammered out in a child's voice, embodies all the hideousness of fascism, more so than all the evidence at Nuremberg put together. To me, the fate of this Jewish girl epitomizes the worst crime perpetrated by everlastingly abominable minds. For the worst crime is not the destruction of life and culture as such. These could also fall victim to a culture-creating revolution. but the throttling of the sources of culture, the destruction of life and talent for the sake of mindless destructiveness. The only solution, wrote Dr. Romaine, is to build a society in which talent is discovered, nurtured, and assisted. Yet, quote, with all our good intentions, he lamented, we are still as far from that democracy as we were before the war. Shall we not, dear friends, today, recommit ourselves to such a task for all our fellow human beings, without exception, upon whom God looks with loving providence? Thank you.